December 3rd, 1994 was the introduction of the PlayStation 1. And this video is basically going to be a timeline of how I felt, how I was introduced to the PlayStation 1, and just why I actually like PlayStation. Why I like Sony. Why the channel name is Sony. Um, so before I get into the PlayStation video here, I want to tell you how I actually became to be a Sony pony, Sony fanboy, right? So essentially, I was actually not a fanboy of PlayStation because it didn't exist. I was actually a really big fan of Sega. I never, ever really liked Nintendo products except for Kirby and Mario 64's soundtrack. That was it. I love music and shit like that. But way back in the day, I think 1992 or 3 or whatever the case is, my sister's boyfriend basically left a Walkman over the house, and there was no such thing as Walkmans back then. Um, so that was incredible. The main thing that kind of stuck to me was the name Sony, and I like music, so that kind of carried me on to loving. I was like, wow, this is some crazy shit. And then um, I believe I bought a Game Gear, and Game Gear failed miserably. And at that point in time, I just could not bring myself to actually buying a Nintendo product. Luckily for me, I believe one of the no, the video stores had a kiosk with the PlayStation 1. And that started all of this for me. When I first got a hold of a PlayStation, it was the summer of '97. No, it was a little bit before. No, it wasn't summer. A little, maybe spring. Um, I was actually over my sister's boyfriend's house, and he had a PlayStation. And the thing that I saw at first was Tekken 2, actually. And one of my favorite characters was the prototype Jack. And I was like, wow, everything's 3D, everything looks cool. And then fast forward to my, to the summer. I spent the night over my uncle's. I spent the summer over my uncle's house, and they had two PlayStation ones. One I had like one of the first models. I won't really get into the details of that, but I had one of the first models, or he had one of the first models, or whatever the case is, and they had Crash Bandicoot. Wasn't really a fan of that shit. I really wasn't. But I did recall because I like 3D adventure games essentially. One of the things that I did see was I remembered actually was a game with a female protagonist that could do backflips and shit like that. And to me, I couldn't bring myself to play in a Mario 64 game, but I did like the 3D aspects. So when I came back home, before I came back home, I asked my uncle if I could have one of his PlayStations that he had lying around. And he gave me that, and I asked my sister if she could buy me this game called Tomb Raider. That pretty much started that particular portion. I fucking loved it. Loved it. I was introduced to a lot of 3D games. I was introduced to the cinematic experience that Sony started 25 years ago. Um, and it was just a blast. It was an absolute blast. Never played any kind of games like it. I wasn't really an RPG fan. But I was ready. I was ready. And one of the things I did see that was coming out in 1999 was the PlayStation 2. That shit took things into a whole new life. They had a whole bunch of rumors and speculation about how powerful it was, anywhere from controlling missiles to, creating Disney-esque CG environments and things of that nature. I just was completely, I believed anything Sony said at that point in time because of the predecessor. The polygon counts were astronomically risen from, characters that had like what, 2 to 500 polygons to like 8,000, 5,000, 10,000 polygons and effects that I've never seen before. Motion blur was one of the things that the PlayStation 2 implemented, where PC games didn't do at the time. which was pretty incredible. I mean, we had things like Grand Theft Auto that was released. I used to play Driver because I wasn't a really big fan of the Grand Theft Auto series, and then I became a quick believer of that shit. Anywhere from Grand Theft Auto to, the Metal Gear Solid series, which was super cinematic. No other game was doing cinematics like that. A lot of obscure games, the God of War titles. You just could not go wrong. The diversity was outrageous. It was outrageous. I fucking love that console. I love that console. Um, and I mean, that really spawned a whole different things. At that point in time, everybody believed anything that Sony said at that point in time, and then we had rumblings about the PlayStation 3 and what it could do. Strangely enough, the PlayStation 2 continued to sell as long as it was on the market. It sold past the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3 being released. But at that time, you know, the word came out for the PlayStation 3, and things were a little rocky. I'm not gonna lie, but the PlayStation 3 still had its, a place. Sony at the time was super desperate, and they just needed to clear its name from like all the shit that they were being beat up on for. So essentially, they created all these IPs, anywhere from Starhawk, Warhawk, the Killzone series. That really sparked something. They had to put their name out there, so they carried. They forced all the developers to be like, "Yo, I need to make CG looking shit. Like, you guys need to step it up." And that's why Sony is known for crazy looking games, things that doesn't seem possible on that console, whatever the case is, through art style and all that other good stuff. So um, I mean, it just spawned a lot of, unique experiences and stuff like that. It wasn't as good as the PS2 era, but I mean, there was a lot of shit that was pretty fucking nice. So you couldn't really hate on it. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't have had a lot of different things, for at this generation. Sandbox games were a thing. Open world games were more common and robust. Um, these cinematics were really robust as well. The Uncharted series literally put that shit on the map, and it just spawned a new type of vibe for gaming, a brand new type of vibe for gaming that made it a serious competitor for entertainment in general, with all of the special effects and stuff that they had, that was reminiscent of Hollywood. The PS4, we're going to keep this short because the generation is still not quite over yet. Plain and simply put, it spawns my favorite game of the generation, which is Horizon Zero Dawn. I've never seen anything graphically enriched the way that it was. Also, Gravity Rush is another game that is my favorite game of all time. Both of those two games, they are my absolute favorite game this whole generation. I like the sandbox. I like the uniqueness and stuff like that. Multiplayer to me wasn't a really big thing because they had this stupid thing called aim assist. Wasn't really feeling that at all. But if all else failed for this generation, it spawned two of my favorite games of this entire generation. Now, this video was in preparation for what I'm going to have tomorrow, my stream. I'm basically going to give my top 10 video games in the past 25 years of PlayStation's life cycle. And you guys let me know what is your top 10 games. I would definitely like to hear you guys talk on that one. Don't forget, there is still a giveaway. It closes December 15th. Take a look at the description, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I would really, really appreciate that. Help me grow this channel to 300 subscribers. We are not that far. See you tomorrow at 4 or 5 or 6 Eastern.